cover that goes on the inner. And the only time that you would use an inner cover is if you use what's called the telescoping top. This is a plastic one. Myself, I like wood and wax for most things in beekeeping. There are actually plastic frames out there and everything else. There are wooden tops. I've got a top right here that's got sheet metal on top of it. I like the plastic covers though for keeping bees myself. They hold up real well. They don't weigh nearly as much as the metal ones or anything else. But you only use an inner cover is if you use a telescoping top. And the reason this is called the telescoping top is because it telescopes over the sides of the boxes all around. Beekeepers are pretty creative with coming up with names if they haven't figured that out. So the other type of cover, which is called the migratory cover, fits on top here like this, and you don't use an inner cover with that. Anybody want to take a guess why this is called a migratory cover? Oh, come on, take a guess. Somebody. The boxes are, yep, this is used by migratory beekeepers because they don't telescope over the sides. You can squish the boxes together. You can fit 4 of them on a pallet and strap them together. The reason that you have to use an inner cover with a migratory or with a telescoping top is with this migratory top, you can actually take your hive tool. This is a hive tool. And you can get in here because the bees will like to seal everything up, and you can get in here and pry your top off. Whereas if you have a telescoping top, the bees will stick things together. And if you didn't have an inner cover in there, they would stick this top down and you have no way to get your hive tool up in there and pry things loose. But with that, what they do is they'll stick down the inner cover and then you just come along and pry that loose. So, you know, different types. You know, I'm kind of partial to the telescoping tops just because I'm not going to be hauling my bees around the United States or anything else. I also like them because they do, you know, they telescope around so you can flip them upside down and use them as a tray and everything else. So, you know, that's my own personal bias with those. Top, migratory cover, telescoping cover. Different, you know, metal covered, plastic, all sorts of different things out there. Frames, there's lots of different frames out there. Best way to do that is to check out some of the different ones that are out there. Some have what are called a wedge top, some have a slotted top. I've got, this is a slotted top right here. And anybody want to guess why it's called a slotted top? Because it's got a slot in the top. This one is a wedge top because there's a little wedge of wood on here that you peel off and then you put your foundation. The plastic or the wax that you put in here is called foundation. This is what the bees will start to draw out their comb on. It's typically made out of wax. There is plastic foundation out there. Some people really like the plastic foundation. I don't. I like the smell of wood and wax myself. The deep foundation typically is wired. It's got a few strips of wire running through it that you can kind of see. I'll pass that around. You can take a look at it. Myself, I'm not big on wired foundation because it seems like whenever I go to do something with it, the wires get in the way. And again, if you're using medium foundation, then you don't really need to wire it. The main reason it's got wires in there is to provide strength, just so that the frame doesn't fall apart until the bees get it drawn out and things. Some people really like it. You know, again, my own personal bias is if you use all mediums, most medium foundation isn't wired, and then you don't have to deal with it. But different types, just like there's different types of tops, there's different types of bottoms. The bottom on this one is one piece. This one is 2 pieces. So just different types of, I can talk to you about different types of frames and that later if you decide you want to get into this about what might work well for you and things. A lot of that is just personal preference. Some of it is, you know, do you like building frames and that sort of thing, or do you want to just buy the plastic ones that you just drop in immediately? Some people that use the plastic ones are very happy with them. You know, I've not had enough experience with them to say that they're good or bad. I just like the smell of wooden wax as you're putting stuff together. Mouse guards. Mouse guards are very important. This isn't the typical type of mouse guard that most people are going to have. A mouse guard comes on usually about September when the weather starts to turn cold, and that one's actually a little bit long, but it fits right in front of the hive. And the reason that is because mice like to crawl into the hives when it starts to get cold because it's nice and warm in there, and the bees leave them alone and things, and you really don't want to be opening up your hive in the spring and find out mice have gotten in there and eaten a lot of things. You know, there's different types of mouse guards out there as well. That's probably one of the most effective types to have around, but it's not real practical. This is what you see most commonly. They're real cheap. They're a hunk of wood, just like this one, except it has another side notched in it. In the winter time, you would close it down, or if you're just putting it in a new package, you flip it so that just the smallest opening is there, and then later on you could flip it so a little bit wider opening, and then you can remove it entirely. This is just a hunk of wood that somebody made their own mouse guard from. It doesn't have to be square or anything else as long as it fits on the front. This is a homemade type made with hardware cloth. This is all metal. That's real nice. A little bit more expensive. That's for the more of the designer type hives. Here's another type that's got little holes in it as well. Just something to keep the mice from getting into your hives. Feeders, lots of different types of feeders out there as well. If you're just starting out a package, or if the bees have had a lousy year and haven't been able to pack away much honey, you have to have some way to get feed to the bees. This is a hanging frame feeder. I don't like them. A lot of bees drown that way, but all you do with one of those is you would take that frame feeder out and you'd replace one of your frames in your hive and fill it up with sugar syrup. And in theory, the bees go down in there and get their sugar and things. Usually when that happens, there's more bees drown than actually survive. I don't like those kind myself, but that's my own personal bias. This is similar to this. It's just a box. The bees come up between this groove. This is open to the hive below, and there's some slanted racks that float in there. You fill that up with sugar syrup, and the bees land on the floating racks and feed on it that way. This is a homemade design. It doesn't have the little floating racks, but they put screen in here, so the bees will come up through the bottom, and they just walk down the side right there, and then the screen hopefully keeps them from getting in and drowning that way. Similar idea here, but you'd want to throw some popsicle sticks or something in the bottom there, just so the bees have something to land on, otherwise they'll end up drowning and you'll kill more bees than you'll feed. An entrance feeder, pretend this is a quart jar. I couldn't find any of my quart jars, so I got a pint jar. But this would actually sit in the front of the hive. They're real nice if you've only got one or two hives and you really like to see what's going on. With a quart jar, you have your metal lid. There's holes punched in the bottom. It sits right in there, and then it sits in there like that. And you can see the bees come in. They don't have to come outside. They actually crawl inside through here and then just get the syrup as it drips out in here. Not real practical, but inexpensive, and it works. I tend to like to do things as inexpensively as possible. So what I think is a real good option as well is you take an empty peat, you put it on top, you get your pickle jar, and you can poke holes in the lid, put that right inside and feed them that way. You've actually got room for 2 pickle jars in there, or if you have any of the plastic apple juice jugs or anything like that. You can lay them on the side, they fit in there perfect. You poke a few holes in it. It drips just enough that the bees get their syrup that way. So, you know, you can go everything from the expensive end to the inexpensive end myself. I'm kind of partial towards doing things inexpensive as well. Miscellaneous things, we've talked about hive tools. My own personal favorite is this Italian hive tool here on the left. It's longer than your standard hive tool, and what's nice about that is you can actually get it in there and it's skinnier. It'll fit all the way down to the bottom of the frame, and there's a little lip on there, and you catch the bottom of the frame and pull up on it. With your shorter hive tools, what you end up doing is you get in here and you pry on the end of your frames, and eventually what you do is these little pieces that stick off the end of the frame are called ears. You know, after years of prying at those ears bust off, which isn't a big deal all the time, but you know, if I was going to spend, these are usually about $4 or $5 more than just your standard cheap hive tool. Myself, I think it's worth it. You also will need a smoker of some sort. This is a standard hive. This one's from Kelly's. Not at all like the one that we saw the people in Brazil working, but fill it up. They actually sell smoker fuel, which is nothing more than compressed cotton fibers. You can use burlap. You basically need something in there that is going to burn and produce some smoke. The idea of the smoke is twofold. One, it makes the bees think that there's a fire, so it encourages the bees to feed on their honey. So you don't really want to smoke them a whole lot, or you're not going to have any honey left. But it does calm them down. It also masks the alarm pheromone. Just like there's a queen pheromone that tells the worker bees, hey, this is my hive, there's an alarm pheromone. If you get stung, you've gotten marked by an alarm pheromone. It smells a little bit like bananas. So if you get stung a lot of times, you can actually sometimes smell that alarm pheromone. And that tells the bees, hey, I stung here, go sting there. And smoke will actually help mask that scent and things. So, you know, a smoker is nice. You know, even if you use a top bar hive, it's not bad to have a smoker around occasionally. You never know when you might want one. Veils. There's different types of veils out there. Hive tools, you can paint them in different colors if you want. I would recommend that you do paint it some color that you're going to see. There's numerous hive tools that have been scattered around eastern Kentucky and every other place, because you go to, you lay it down, and then it's like, where'd it go? So paint it a bright, ugly color so you can see it. My own personal bias for veils, I like the helmet style veil, because you can put your name on it, nobody walks off with it that way. Also, if you're working around the hives and you bend over, you don't bang your head. This type is more a little hat, and what it does is it zips right onto the suit here. I don't like this if you get a little bit thin on top like I'm getting myself, and this is sitting on top of your head and the bee decides to sting you through that. It's kind of painful. Here's a veil. Again, this zips onto the suit. You can wear whatever type of hat you want underneath here, and it's got elastic that fits around your head and things. So there's different types of veils. There's also something called an Alexander veil. I don't have one of those, but you know, I like the helmet veil, but that's my own personal bias. Suits, I like cotton, just because you can hang it out there in the rain and everything else and get it somewhat clean. Come in a lot of different sizes. There are actually ventilated suits out there that are composed of a mesh with some foam in between for the beekeeper that sweats a lot in the summertime. One of the most important things I think on a bee suit myself is the zipper on the leg. Makes it a lot easier. You don't have to take your boots off to put that on. There are bee suits that don't have zippers on the leg. There's nylon ones out there as well. much less expensive. If you're in agriculture, they're just a Tyvek spray suit. You'll notice most bee suits are white because bees are less likely to sting something that's white. You don't have to have white. I know beekeepers that just wear coveralls and a veil, and that works fine too, but bees are more prone to sting a dark color than a light color. Also, if you're out there in August, it's a bright sunny day, you're going to be cooler wearing white than you will other things. Most of them all have lots of pockets on the side, pocket for your hive tool. And they also have this zipper that goes around the neck where you can zip your veil on as well. So buy a good quality suit. Gloves. This is a standard beekeeper glove right here. I don't like them myself. A lot of times I won't even wear gloves when I'm working my bees because I find that I'm a lot more careful about what I do if I don't wear gloves. Sometimes you do want gloves on, and this actually works well. It goes up over your suit. It's got a little bit of ventilation, nice, thick, you're not going to get stung. My own personal preference for gloves, though, are just simple disposable nitrile gloves, because those things get pretty wet and sticky and nasty with honey and propolis. Propolis is that gum that bees use to stick everything together, whereas if you have a box of these cheap disposable nitrile gloves, these are the things that doctors use. They're pretty much puncture-proof. The bees aren't going to sting you through it. It's still pretty sensitive. You can feel things real well. A box of them is pretty cheap. You can get it at a Rite Aid or a drugstore somewhere. So I like those myself. And then when you're done with them, you just take them and you can throw them out. We do have different sizes up here. They also come in goat. These are my son's gloves. Calf, or here's some more goat. These are an extra small size. So if you don't know what size glove you wear, get measured if you do want to go for this. My daughter, who's 8, she wears an extra small. And again, as long as we're talking about kids, if you're going to have kids involved in beekeeping, they do have kid-sized suits out there, but you don't have to buy a kid-sized suit. In fact, one of the things that worked real well for us in terms of getting my wife to allow my kindergarten son to keep bees is I said, well, we'll take an adult-sized suit, we can roll up the sleeves, we can roll up the cuffs so it's twice as thick, so he's even less likely to get stung. So, you know, you don't have to buy a kid-sized suit, but there certainly are kid-sized suits out there. But, you know, minimal thing, a veil, you know, it's not a lot of fun to get stung on the ear. I was doing something here this fall trying to move some bees at night, and they found a hole and came in, and I got stung on the eye and things, and you know, couldn't see out of that eye for a day and things. So, you know, a smoker and a veil and a hive tool, and you can pretty much get into beekeeping. In terms of harvesting, you know, hopefully you're going to get some honey out of everything. You can buy a fancy electric knife with a dial on it, and you know what it is. It's a hot knife, and it comes along and it cuts the cappings off of the frame so that you can extract the honey out of that. I found just a regular sharp knife works just as well. I run it under some hot water for a while, and you know, if you were going to do this commercially, if you have 20 hives or something, you know, invest in one of these. But if you're just doing a few frames or something, there's no reason to. A capping scratcher, I haven't really found much use for these, but you can use this to scratch that cappings as well. Where these do come in handy, one of the ways that people use to control mites, and this is a place where plastic does come in handy, there are specific green plastic frames that you can put in your hive. The cell size is a little bit larger than your standard cell size on your, the bees will draw out. And what they do with that is those are the ones that are designed for the drones. The drones are the male bees. Their basic function is to hang around, eat, mess up the hive, and breed with the queen, and that's about it. And come fall, what they do is the worker bees kick them out of the hive, because they say, why do we need you around here dirtying up the hive, because queen doesn't need any mating flights or anything then. But drone cells are actually a little bit larger than the worker cells, and the green plastic frames that when the bees draw those out, they will preferentially lay drones in those cells, and the varroa mite preferentially attacks drone bees. So by putting one of those green frames in, the varroa mites are going to go to that frame, and then once it gets all capped over, you come along with your little capping scratcher, scratch it off, which kills the drone cells in there, and then the bees will come along and they'll drag out all the dead drone bees and throw them out and throw out the varroa mites with them. So that's one of your more integrated pest management methods that you can use for beekeeping as well. That's kind of what you use a capping scratcher for. Got to have some place to put your honey, whether it's a queen line type bottle or a honey bear quart jar. Strainers, it's always nice to strain things, but we've just used a colander with a hanky to strain things before, and that works well. Make sure you wash it first. Queen catchers, this is a queen catcher over here. Another place where you can make money in beekeeping, actually, and a place that I've not done much with, it's one of those things on my to-do list that never reaches a level of priority, is rear queens. People are always looking for queens. It's a nice hobby. There's money to be made there, but it's a little bit labor intensive. Just something to think about as well. Nukes. This is a nuke box right here. I didn't bring the bottom board along, but all it is essentially it's a nucleus colony, which means it's a small little colony. These are real handy for catching swarms. You put them in here, a small swarm, and because it doesn't fill up the whole box. So you put your small swarm in here and let them get adjusted in. Once they draw that out, then you can transfer those frames and those bees and put them in a bigger box. Sometimes, you know, if you don't order a package, you can buy a nuke from somebody, and what they'll do is they'll typically give you a cardboard box that has 4 frames and bees in it. That's a little bit more expensive than buying a package of bees. A package of bees will run you around $70 to $80 for a 3-pound package. The nuke could run you $110. If you buy a full hive, you could be looking at $200. It's hard to believe people pay that kind of money for bugs, but they do. A good queen actually will run you $15 to $20 sometimes. So, you know, if you're raising a bunch of queens, you can do that. Ross rounds, anybody like honey in the comb? I like honey in the comb versus extracted honey. This is the setup where the bee's actually drawn out, and then that just fits right in a little plastic lid. You see these a lot in stores for sale. So that's something else you can do. Grafting tools is something that you would use for rearing queens. Bee races. The Italian bee is what's most popular. They're gentle, they're good producers. They tend not to produce as much propolis, which sticks everything together. This is the German bee. We see a lot of these in the wild around here because this part of the Appalachians was settled by Germans and Northern Europeans. They brought their bees with them. They got settled out. You know, so you can kind of see these are yellow or those are black. As a rule of thumb, the darker bees are more aggressive than the lighter bees. Russian bees, I like Russian bees. These are very hygienic bees. They're good at controlling varroa mites just through grooming practices, much better than the Italian bee. They do not produce as much honey as your Italian bees. They don't use as much honey in the wintertime either. A much smaller cluster will go into the winter. I like them. A little bit hard to find Russian queens though. Carniolan bees, these are a little bit more amber. I've never used those myself. Supposedly they're very fruity.